Okay, guys, we're on the subject of the Exodus. And Exodus obviously is a very, very famous story. But I think the thing that we've lost sight of is that it's something that just took place in the past and it has no bearing in the future. But as we'll see, guys, in this study, it's quite the opposite. Everything that happened in the Exodus is a type of the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ, okay? And it's all the things that happen in the Exodus also happen in the book of Revelation. Principally what we're focusing on in this one, guys, is the 10 complaints. This is very, very critical that we understand that what we are also being gathered. Now, I'm in a physical location of whatever you want to call it, Kadesh, or actually these places, if not in the actual proximity, short proximity to these places in the Exodus, these critical places. And that's what I've been sharing with you, and I certainly encourage you to watch the previous video, Exodus, the admonition of the end times. And essentially what we're getting at there, guys, is in 1 Corinthians 10, it tells us this. It tells us about, we were all baptized in Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did eat the same spiritual meat and the same spiritual drink, and they drank of this spiritual rock. That rock is Christ. So it's talking about this spiritual meat and spiritual drink in 1 Corinthians as it relates to Moses. And we can also see this in Revelation chapter 7 when it says, they shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light them any more. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them and shall lead them into the living fountains of waters. Okay, so here this hunger and thirst has to do with the wilderness. When the children of Israel were in the wilderness, okay, they ate the same spiritual food that was manna, which is Christ. And they had the same spiritual drink from the rock, which is Christ. Okay, he is the living waters. Okay, so here clearly we can see these types in the Exodus. Okay, but there's admonitions here in 1 Corinthians 10. Let's read the rest of them. But many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now, for many of you, you may believe that God doesn't judge the people of God. Well, certainly in the Exodus, you had the 10 plagues on Egypt, okay? But then you have 10 complaints. And then we're going to talk about another 10 events in the Exodus where God is judging his people. And guys, I know whenever I do this, you think in your mind, your religious filter says, okay, that's not me, that doesn't apply to me, I'm fine. That's self-righteousness, guys. I do this work, I do all this to have you check yourself. Take these things, study, please get the notes, okay? I have notes on the previous message, okay? And I have notes on this message. It's a lot of material. This might be somewhat long, but please study this, okay? And test yourself, okay? Now, these things were our examples to the intent that we should not lust after evil things as they lusted, okay? Neither be idolaters, as some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed it, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ. Now, keep in mind what it's saying. It's saying, neither let us tempt Christ. It's talking about the Exodus, and they tempted Christ, okay, even back then. And some of them also were tempted or destroyed of the serpents. Neither murmur, as some of them also murmured, were destroyed of the destroyer. Now, all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition. Okay, again, they are written. The Exodus happened. The Exodus was written as an admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. So now we're in the time of the ends of the world, the end times, and all these admonitions are for our day. Let's also look at Acts chapter 7. Acts chapter 7 talks about the Exodus, but it says, Exodus 7:37. This is that Moses which said unto the children of Israel, a prophet shall the Lord our God raise up unto your brethren, like unto me. Him shall you hear. Now here it's talking about Moses, talking about the prophet. This is one of the two witnesses, okay? We've talked about this, all right? This is he that was in the church, or the ecclesia, in the wilderness with the angel which spoke to him in Mount Sinai. Okay, so here it's talking about the assembly, the church in the wilderness, okay? The same thing is happening now. God is gathering his people, not to a physical location. I'm in this physical location, but it's in the spirit, okay? Because he said he would gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven and the other. That means that we're assembled in the spirit, okay? But we're assembled in the patterns of the Exodus, okay? And so there we can see clearly these are admonitions. And again, let's look at them again. For they were overthrown. These are the people of God. They weren't affected by the 10 plagues of Egypt, but then in the wilderness, when they started murmuring and complaining, they had a journey, guys. The journey should have just taken less than 2 years, okay? But it didn't. It took 40 years. And the reason for that was their murmuring and complaining. And we are in the 40 days, the time of judgment, okay? And they were overthrown in the wilderness. And it's admonition. We should not lust after evil things, nor be idolaters, not commit fornication, not tempt Christ, for they are destroyed of serpents, and murmur and complain. Okay? So with whatever's going on, guys, don't murmur and complain. Seek the Lord. Have faith in the Lord that He is leading you. And take all these things and check yourself. Now, what happens is you have the children of Israel coming out of the Exodus, and they have 10 complaints. Okay, I'm sorry if there's a little wind. I'm trying to do this early in the morning before the wind picks up, but there are 10 complaints. On the 10th complaint, guys, God said that's enough. After that, they wandered 38 years. Okay, so it already took 2 years. There was 1 year of the Exodus, and the second year of the Exodus is the book of Numbers. Okay, now in the book of Numbers, you have chapters 1 through 14, essentially, and really 15, that cover the first, cover actually 4 months. From the first month unto the 4th month, the spies. When the children of Israel rejected the spies and rejected Joshua and Caleb and complained about the evil report from the 10 spies, then they were wandering, okay, but they were right there. They could have continued into the promised land. And it took 38 years later, they come into the 5th month, and then they begin to enter. But all the ones that were 20 years old and older, they died in the wilderness. Now let's look at the 10 complaints, guys. And again, take these things to the Lord and really check yourself. Number 1, the Egyptians marched, and when the children of Israel were at the Red Sea crossing, and they complained. It was better to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. So that's the first complaint. The second is Marah. Then when they crossed to the other side, there was a place called Marah, which means bitter. Okay, this has to do with wormwood, one of the trumpets. But they murmured and said, "What shall we drink?" And then Moses cried unto the Lord, and he took a tree, and he cast the tree into the water, and the water became sweet. So what happens is they have obstacles, guys. We all have obstacles. And when you have obstacles, don't complain. Don't say, God is doing evil things to me. Take it to the Lord. He has an answer. He has a solution, okay? And every time they came to something impossible, seemingly impossible, God did something amazing. So number 3 is the congregation complained about bread. And then what happened is the Lord rained down from heaven manna, okay? And then we know this is the spiritual meat that I talked about, 1 Corinthians. And this is one of the promises. The other thing we're relating, guys, is how these things in the Exodus relate to the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation, the church of Pergamos, he said, to he who overcomes, I'll grant to eat the hidden manna, okay, for the overcomers. Now, the next one is it relates to the manna and the Sabbath. And on this one, guys, I want to go to Hebrews 4 and just read a little bit of this, because it talks about the Sabbath is entering rest. And let me read Hebrews 4:1. And let us therefore fear, lest the promise being left to us entering into his rest, that any should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them, but the word preached did not profit them mixed with faith, and them that heard it. For we which have believed do enter into rest. As he has said, I have sworn in my wrath that if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he spake of a certain place of the 7th day on this wise, God did rest on the 7th day from his works. Okay, seeing therefore there remaining some must enter in, they who it was first preached entered not because of unbelief. So it's talking about them not entering the promised land because of unbelief. And one of the things that happened, the 4th complaint, was because the children of Israel were gathering manna on the seventh day. They weren't. God said, "Okay, you'll have double portion on the sixth day. You'll have it provided for you." Because the Sabbath is to get you to rest, get you to believe, trust in God. Instead of you thinking, okay, I'm just going to, keep collecting manna, you have to follow God's instruction. He has double the amount, so you collect it on the sixth day, and then you rest the seventh day. And then the children of Israel, of course, violated that. Now, number 5, the people did chide with Moses, and they said, "Give us water to drink." And this is Meribah, okay? Now this, number 5, is when the people chode with Moses, the Lord said, "I will stand before you upon rock of Horeb," the rock of Horeb. And he said to smite the rock. Now guys, where this is Meribah, okay? Now this is at the rock of Horeb, okay? So God said, "I will stand before you, before the rock, but to smite the rock," okay? And we know that this place is in the Sinai Peninsula. So they've crossed the Red Sea. They're on the other side. They are in the Sinai Peninsula, which is in Arabia. Okay, and then this is a time the Lord instructs him to smite the rock. Okay, and again, this is what we saw in Revelation 7. "To whoever is thirsty, let him come to the living waters." The Lamb. Okay, so we're seeing the Lamb in Revelation. This is also the rock, which is Christ, the same spiritual drink. Isn't that amazing? So that rock is the first time this happens. This is the first Meribah. There's a second Meribah, which we will look at in a little bit later. Number 6 is the golden calf. Okay, and you know the situation, you know the story. The golden calf, children of Israel made the golden calf and said, "These are the gods which brought us out of Egypt," right? Now, what is the significance to the golden calf in the book of Revelation? Well, what it is, guys, is the 144,000 include 12 tribes. The 2 tribes that are not included in the 144,000 is the tribe of Dan and the tribe of Ephraim. Now, you may not realize this, but a golden calf was set up a second time in the times of the kings. Okay, there was an evil king, and he set up a golden calf, one of them in Dan, another one in Bethel. Bethel is physically located in Ephraim, and this is why those 2 tribes committed this abomination a second time. Okay, so that's why they are not included in the 144,000, Dan and Ephraim. Okay, so there's other significance of the golden calf. What the children of Israel did is they took off their earrings and they took off everything and they put it together. And this is also the golden calf is also harlot. Mystery Babylon, okay, and that's what we're saying. "Come out of her, my people," the golden calf. Okay, number 7, the people complained, and the Lord's anger was kindled, and a fire burnt among them. Okay, and I encourage you to get these notes, guys, and read more of this. I'm just going to go through these 10 somewhat quickly because I have another 10 to go over. Number 8, they fell lusting. They said, "Give us flesh to eat." They complained of the manna. Many times the children of Israel complained of the miracle, this supernatural food, the angels' food came down from heaven. So then God provided quail for them 30 days. Number 9, racism. Number 9 is Miriam and Aaron complained to Moses about his wife. His wife was Ethiopian, okay? And they're saying, "Your wife is not Jewish, okay? Your wife is black." So this is racism. And what happened is Miriam became leprous and was outside the camp 7 days, okay? So you have Aaron and Miriam complaining. Then the 10th one is the 10 spies. 10 spies brought an evil report, and all the children of Israel murmured and said, and they said, "We are grasshoppers," because they were afraid of the giants. And this was the one that was the straw that broke the camel's back. The 10th complaint is the spies. Okay, and the spies said, "We are grasshoppers in our sight because we saw the Nephilim, we saw the giants, and of course Joshua and Caleb had the spirit like David to slay the giant, to slay Goliath. We can take the promised land." All right, so they're the 2 witnesses. They're the only 2 that entered the promised land. But guys, they were right there. They're in the wilderness of Paran, and they could have just had a few days' journey and they could have entered the promised land, okay? That's what we showed you in the previous video from the wilderness of Paran. But now, guys, they had to wander, okay? So then we get to the other section of time of 38 years, okay? So what we have, guys, is we have this time period of 38 years. But the book of Numbers doesn't tell us a whole lot about this time. It gives us a lot of information between Numbers chapter 1 and Numbers chapter 15. But then in Numbers 16 through 19, it's these 38 years. Of course, Deuteronomy covers some of these as well. But then what happens at Numbers chapter 20, they come back to where they started. We're going to look at the types and shadows. But they come back to a place where God again sends spies, sends messengers, okay? He also talks about the offerings, talks about some other things that we'll talk about. It's kind of a repeat. So they were right there, they wandered 38 years, and then they come back to another place and position where they begin to enter. So all the people aged 20 and over had to die. They had to bury Aaron. Now, this is key. They buried Aaron on the first day of the 5th month, okay? So, guys, what that means is that the spy's evil report had to be prior to that. It had to be in the 4th month. And that's what we're explaining, is that the spy's evil report is the 12th day of the 4th month, which I believe is June 24th. So, what happens is once they get to Numbers chapter 20, it is the 50th year of the Exodus, the 38 years of wandering. And then from there, they begin to, have a lot of other critical events happen, which we'll look at, okay? But many of these things happen in a short period of time. So you got the 5th month, okay? And then Moses recites the book of Deuteronomy, recites a repeat of all the events in the 11th month. So from Numbers chapter 20 all the way to Deuteronomy chapter 1 is just 6 months, okay? So you can see in the book of the book of Numbers, you have a lot taking place between chapters 1 and 15, and a lot of taking place between chapters 20 and Deuteronomy chapter 1. Okay, now let's look at these events and let's look at these types and shadows, because also the New Testament warns us about many of these things that take place. Number 1, and these what we're calling, guys, is the 10 events from the wandering of the wilderness, okay? Some of these, most of what we're talking about is things that happened in these 38 years up until the 40th year. Okay, you have the rebellion of Korah, okay? And Jude talks about this rebellion, okay? And actually, let's read Jude. We're going to reference it a few times, but I'll read the whole thing just once. Jude 11, woe to them, for they are gone after the way of Cain, and run greedily after the heir of Balaam, for reward, and perishing in the gainsaying of Korah. For these are spots in your feasts of charity, when they feast upon you, feeding themselves without fear. Clouds they are without ward, carry about with winds, trees whose fruit withers, without fruit, twice dead, plucked up by their roots, raging waves of the sea, foaming out of their own shame, wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. And Enoch also, the 7th from Adam, prophesied these, saying, Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000 of his saints to execute judgment upon all, to convince all that are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds, which they have ungodly committed, and all of their hard speeches, which ungodly sinners have spoken of him. And these are murmurers and complainers, walking after their own lusts, and their mouths speaking grace-filling words, having men's persons in admiration because of advantage. So Jude and the book of Enoch prophesies about the wickedness of the people in the last days. And that wickedness is, as you can see, he talks about Balaam. He talks about Korah. These are things that happened in the Exodus. Okay. Now the second one is Meribah. Then what happens, guys, is the children of Israel complain again about water. They come to another place, and the Lord tells Moses to speak to the rock. Okay. So prior to this, he said, strike the rock with your rod. Okay. But then he says, speak to the rock. Now let's remember, the rock that is Christ. Okay. So it's very important that Moses follows these instructions. He strikes the rock the water comes out, guys. But this is the second Meribah. We told you about the first one. This is the second Meribah. And then what happens, guys, this costs Moses the ability to enter the promised land. He goes up to the mountain. He goes up to Mount Nebo. He sees the promised land, but he's unable to enter. It even talks about his prayer in Deuteronomy where he asks the Lord to allow him to go and see the promised land. But the Lord does not allow him. And the reason for this, he had to speak to the rock. Okay. Number 3. Fiery serpents. Then what happened is, again, the children of Israel complained about the manna. And the Lord sent fiery serpents. Okay? And he sent fiery serpents which killed a great number of them. And this is also the story where they took one of the serpents and they put it on a rod and they raised it up. And then in doing so, that the people will be healed of the plague. Okay? And this is spoken of John, of Christ being raised up. And him being raised up, providing healing and salvation. Okay, now the next one is Balaam. Now there's a lot. I encourage you to take the time. Those who please get the notes, please study this. Please read Numbers chapter 22 through 25. It talks about Balaam, and of course it's a very famous story about the donkey speaking to him. But guys, Balaam is something the Lord Jesus Christ admonished us about in Revelation. We also see it in Jude and in 2 Peter. In fact, let's read some of these verses here. I read the one in Jude. Let's go to 2 Peter. And in 2 Peter, we also have also talking about this, which have forsaken the right way and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bosor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness, but was rebuked for his iniquity. The dumb donkey, speaking out of a man's voice, forbade the madness of the prophet. Okay, and these are, I encourage you to read this as well. It's very similar to Jude, but it's speaking about Balaam, and the Lord talked about this. So what Balaam did, guys, is he prophesied for money. He took the spiritual gifts. He had things where he could hear from the Lord. He had prophecies, but he was hired by a king, Balak, to curse Israel. Balak was very afraid of the children of Israel coming and to defeat him. And so instead of greeting, the scriptures say, instead of greeting him with bread, the children of Israel with bread and water, he hired a prophet and paid a prophet to curse them. Okay? And God said, no, I turned the curses into blessings. And even Balaam has prophecies that relate to the second coming of Jesus Christ. So, but this is critical, guys. This is critical. The Lord warned us. And how many people do you see speaking, begging for money? Okay, they may not be doing what they're doing for money, but they're asking for wages. This is asking for wages of unrighteousness. This is Balaam. This is what the Lord, warned us about. Okay, He says, if go to a city, go with no money. Okay, we're not supposed to ask for money, guys. We're supposed to trust in God. He will provide. If we're following Him or we're going to places, then we don't have to beg the people for money. Okay, God will provide. And if we do, then we may have the spirit of Balaam working. And you see this so much all over the place, on TV, on YouTube. Everybody, give. Okay, but we shouldn't be doing that, guys. That's Balaam. Okay, that's taken. God if He's blessed you with certain things, He's going to provide. Okay, just like He sent the disciples with no money, He'll send you. He'll provide. All right. So that's very sobering because of so many people, talking about money, doing this for money. All right. But the other thing, my number 5 is related to this, and this is Balak. This is the king. And guys, all these things I've had happen to me. I had someone, try to hire me as a Balak, and try to pay me, So, you just want to be careful with all these things. Now, Balak was like the king that hired the prophet, okay? And so this is a manipulative person. And this is witchcraft. It talks about Balaam being a soothsayer with rewards of divination, okay? And Balak was the one that hired him. So these are spirits, guys. There's a spirit of Balaam. There's a spirit of Balak that operates in people, okay? Then what happens in Numbers 25, it's called the matter of Baal Peor. And what this is it says that once that Balaam and Balak could not curse the children of Israel, they set them up, okay? They set them up, and another place, I believe it's Midian, and what happened is they set them up with female temple prostitutes, and the children of Israel began sleeping with these women, and it brought a curse on them, okay? So this is the battle of Beer Por, and they ate sacrifices of the dead, and they had a plague. Now this is the story where when Phinehas took a javelin and through the tent, pierced through both the men and women that were having sex in this and causing this plague. So he did that. He killed them, and that ended the plague. Okay, but you know, this was related to Balaam because Balaam conspired to do this. And then let's keep going. We got number 7 is the fire of the Lord and the strange fire. Okay, so a number of times earlier in Leviticus 10, Nadab and Abihu, they offered strange fire unto the Lord. Okay, we also saw before about Korah. They offered strange fire unto the Lord. They said, Moses and Aaron, you are not the only ones that can hear from God. We can hear from God. There's a, you know, we don't, you know, you're taking too much upon yourself. And, you know, of course, that was a rebellion because, you know, Moses and Aaron were God's spokesperson, okay? But they violated God's order, and that's when they perished, okay? So, guys, you know, be careful about the servants of the Lord. The servants of the Lord, and God is speaking to them, you know, do not speak out against them. If you do, you'll also have strange fire, and the fire of the Lord will break forth in your life. Okay, number 8 is the spies are sent a second time. So, of course, before we told you about the spies and then the 10 spies had the evil report. Well, spies are sent again from another place called Kadesh. And the place I'm at now, some believe is Kadesh. And in this instance, they sent messengers to various key kings, I believe Edom. And again, they were rejected, you know, passage, but the spies were again sent. Now, number 9 is Passover. Now, in Numbers chapter 9, which is earlier in the book, the Lord talks about Passover, and he talks about a second Passover. So if you're not ready in the first month and prepared in the first month for Passover, the Lord institutes a Passover in the second month, okay? And then it's in the second month, and then shortly thereafter, this Passover, that the children of Israel come out of the wilderness of Sinai, come into Paran, and then the 10 spies are sent, okay? But it talks about the Passover. Then later on in Numbers, okay, God reminds them again about the feasts of Passover. He reminds them also about the feast of first fruits and also of tabernacles. So, but Passover is the one that is significant because in Revelation we know that there's the Lamb. The Lamb, as it had been slain, is seated on the throne, guys. That's what this is all about. The assembly, all of us, we're assembling around the Lamb. Okay, what we're doing the same things as the children of Israel. We are complaining. We're being subject to judgment and plagues and the same things that are happening in the world, guys. Okay, so all the things happening to you, take them to the Lord. Okay, well, there's a great assembly taking place, and number 10 is the census. In the census, early on, there were 603,550 men of war from the 12 tribes. Then there were Levites, 22,000. Then a second census is done after 38 years, later on in Numbers 26, and at this time there's 601,730. So there's actually 1,820 less people, okay? But then there's 23,000 Levites. So what's happening is they're right about to enter the Promised Land, okay, and a census was done, okay. They refused. God sent them to wander in the wilderness another 38 years. A census is done, and then they enter, okay. So again, the same thing is happening. A census is taking place. A numbering of the people is taking place. And I have a lot of videos on that. I've been talking about that quite a bit. But let's look at other verses where it talks about this census, or these people, or this assembly. In Deuteronomy 33:2, it says, "The Lord came from Sinai and shined forth from Mount Paran with 10,000s of his saints." In Psalm 68, verse 7, "The chariots of God are 10,000s, thousands of saints, the Lord with them in Sinai." You see that? And again, we read in Jude 14, Enoch prophesied of these. The Lord comes with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment. And of course, all of this, again relating to Revelation 7, the 144,000 of the 12 tribes are sealed. Okay? And Genesis 49:10, I'm actually going to open to this because I want to read the whole thing. And just keep reminding you guys, what we're saying here is we're assembling around the Lamb. Okay, we're assembling around the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And so if we go to Genesis 49, Judah, you are he whom your brethren shall praise. Your hand shall be in the neck of your enemies. Your father's children shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, from my son, they were gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion, as an old lion. Who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Who? The Lion and tribe of Judah. Unto him shall the gathering of the people be. The binding of his fall in the vine, and his donkey's colt in the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, and his clothes with the blood of grapes. That, again, is the Lord Jesus Christ when he has the vesture dipped in blood, described in Revelation 19. But what are we doing? We are assembling and gathered around the Lion and the Lamb. And again, as we mentioned from the top, Matthew 24:31, he will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to another. So guys, it's a lot of material. I definitely encourage you to get the notes. I'll scan these. I'll scan both pages for you, the admonition. Previously, we looked at the 10 plagues. We looked at the seals in the Exodus. So guys, thanks for watching. Please also follow the playlist. What I've done is I put together an Exodus playlist of all the messages related to the Exodus. So I'm just trying to organize it a little bit better so you can see all the things that we've been teaching you, explaining how to gather the saints, assemble around the throne, because the Lord is coming soon. So guys, thanks for watching. As I say, watch and pray, and be counted worthy to escape all these things. In Jesus Christos' name, amen.